Acclaimed garden designer and author Benjamin Vogt brings a new garden ethic into our yards, gardens, and communities. Today, he joins us from his home in Nebraska to explain what's behind his mission to Prairie Up and Unlawn America. Hey, Benjamin, thank you so much for being with us here today. We're excited to talk to you. I'm a big fan of your work. How in the world did a PhD in creative writing cultivate their defiant compassion for prairie? How'd you get started on this path?
Well, let's see. We got married, bought a house. I started gardening because I grew up gardening with my mother, even though I didn't really learn that much. I just knew I wanted to have 1,000 square foot garden. So put the plants in. A couple years later, I was on a couple garden tours and people started asking, do you do consulting? I said, well, no, I'm a professor. I guess I could do that. And then they're like, well, do you do install? I'm like, well, I guess I could learn how to do that. It just sort of snowballed from there, and then I was writing articles for House too at the around that time. So people started to ask me to do articles for other magazines and publications, and then somebody said, "Hey, have you ever thought of a book?" And
Wow.
yeah, we could do that. So it's just one thing just led into another naturally.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you had when you said, okay, I'm going away from a lawn into sort of a diverse landscape?
Just knowing absolutely nothing. I think like a lot of folks who do this, it's the passion that drives us,
Right.
that starts us out. And I mean, I could say practical things like the cost of 1 gallon pots, and which nobody should use anymore. The effort of digging into thick, sloppy clay where the topsoil's been stripped off after building a new home. Those were definitely real challenges.
Your first literary expression, I would say, into prairies, because you've got a book of poetry before that, really seems to be, at least from my perspective, based on intimate observations with nature. You say that gardens can be an important guide toward bringing us more fully into life and life more fully into us. And even more so, there's this wonderful little bit that says, even the blood of plants is the blood of humans. The only significant difference is the magnesium atom in chlorophyll and the iron atom in hemoglobin. One captures light and the other oxygen.
I think all of us are doing, and I think especially now in these times, we're doing this gardening work because we're seeking this connection. We're seeking to build this community, and building community with plants, with the wildlife that come to them, just seems like life 101, right? Yes, of course. I mean, we are all stardust. We're all made of the same stuff. But unfortunately, we've forgotten. I really believe that we used to speak the language of plants and animals. I mean, literally speak and understand. So when I'm outside with my son listening to birds, we're trying to think, what are they saying? What is that specific call? We're looking at plants, observing them change over the season and how they're interacting with other plants and pollinators around them. What is the communication that's going on here? What is the community? How can we be a part of this? Because this is so vital to our existence, right? Not just physical existence, but emotional existence as well.
In order to really learn, one must observe.
Observe and internalize it, right? This idea of empathy is identifying with other creatures and other places, but then you can take it a step further into compassion, and compassion is where you actually act on that, right? This creature needs this habitat, needs this plant. Well, we need to bring that in there, right? What are they experiencing? What are they feeling? And then I internalize that and I think, I have so many of these same issues, these same feelings. So, we are one. And if we're one, we need to stop having so much lawn, right? Because the lawn is harming all of us.
Let's discuss Prairie Up, because I think it's such a wonderful resource for folks. You've got about 5 chapters broken in sections. Can we talk about sort of how you organized the book and why you approached it like that?
The first chapter is a little bit about the history of prairie, where prairie is. And people always say, well, I'm not from Nebraska, so this book doesn't apply to me. And I'm like, gosh, there's prairies and meadows and savannas everywhere, every state. And even when you just look at a lawn space, right, this lawn, it is already sort of a meadow, sort of a prairie. It's at least in that early succession stage, and we're just trying to heal it. So I look at the whole book as just how are we healing the landscape and getting back in the conversation and rebuilding that community and sort of also decolonizing.
Can we talk a little bit about why it's important to look at plant communities, not just sort of that Victorian approach of collecting a singular species and putting it out there.
I'm thinking about how the plants are going to collectively work for one another and work against one another, because that's how prairies work, right? I mean, that's how we work too in our human cultures. So I'm thinking, okay, if we have this ground cover Bouteloua gracilis blue grama grass, how is this going to help stabilize the site, provide weed control for other plants that are going to establish? This species, this forb species over here, has a very deep taproot. How is that going to interact and draw resources in the soil compared to a more fibrous rooted grass? Thinking how the plants work together, and it's really easy to think community. You just go out to a prairie and observe what plants are growing together. That can tell you a lot about their sort of cooperation, and then you can bring that into your own habitat. Just sort of copy those plants over and see what happens.
Your sales pitch here: why should America unlawn?
John. Oh, well, that's the next book. I mean, if it ever makes it, it is a scary book for me, because I am tracing the classist and racist origins of suburbia and lawn. So lawn is about getting us back into a balance, not just with nature, but with one another. Again, this idea of decolonizing, building community, because community is resilience in so many ways, not just environmentally, right? So when we look at the world around us and look at how we interact together in that world, yeah, it's community. Lawn keeps us away from one another. It's always pitched as democracy. Everybody's equal, everybody's the same, but no, it's corporations taking wealth and money and power away from you and the community around you that will keep you healthy.
You've had some discussions about weediness, because this is a big thing that I run into about trying to do prairie restoration within suburban areas or even cities. How do we best navigate this sort of aesthetic argument? If someone's trying to start this biodiverse strategy within their landscape, how can you deal with someone approaching those folks and saying it just looks weedy?
There are two answers to this. The first quicker answer is that anytime you convert a lawn to a more natural garden, a meadow or prairie garden, people are going to consider it weedy. You have created a breach in the system, right? So you have to be prepared to sort of defend and advocate for that space, even though that's not necessarily always going to happen. I think out of 100 gardens we've installed, we've had 2 issues. So when you are designing the garden, it's all about, again, plant communities. It's about matching sociability to the site. If you have a 100 square foot garden, you don't want to put a species in there that's going to throw out a ton of seeds and a ton of root runners and take over, because that's going to be weedy quick, right? You want to employ cues to care. So these are elements in the landscape that show it. This is an intentional space: wide paths, sitting areas, sculptures or whatnot, or sign that says, this is what this garden is doing. This is why it's doing that. This is why it's different. And then massing and drifting is a design element I'm a big fan of. Putting, maybe you have 3 coneflower here, 3 coneflower there, 3 coneflower over there, and just so we have that repetition through the landscape, so people, as their eyes go through the landscape, can sort of connect the dots and make order, because that's what we do when we're out in a 5,000 square foot prairie. We look around and we try to make order from it, connect the dots.
Well, your new book, as you mentioned, is coming out. When can folks expect it?
It's not going to come out until February of 2027, but I have to have the book to them next month, so end of May.
Then that being the case, we don't want to take up any more of your valuable time. Benjamin, thank you so much, and I really appreciate your approach to both thinking about and trying to heal our landscapes.
Thank you so much, John. Prairie up, everyone.
Prairie up.